Alright, so in the last session we started talking about asynchronous epics, right? And we were talking about future methods, right? So future method is a method which can execute in future when the resources become available, right? So this is something which can actually wait in the queue, let the high priority epics code get executed like trigger and visual force methods and all, okay? And it is gonna wait till the time resources become available. All right. So anything which is a long running operation, not the highest priority thing, can be written as future method. Okay. So that's what we understood. To make a method a future method, all that you need to do is you just need to put in at future annotation there. Okay. While you're defining the method, before the method, just put this at future annotation there. All right. That's what we understand. Now, a future method, in case there is a parameter that you are using in the future method, this parameter cannot be S object. Okay, that's one thing that we have to keep in mind about future method. S objects cannot be used as parameter. Okay, so you cannot define a parameter of S object. Parameter can be of the normal primitive data types, okay, or collection of primitive data types, but S objects cannot be used as parameters. Now, why do you think S object cannot be used as a parameter? Anyone? Any ideas? Why do you think S object cannot be defined as a parameter on a future method? What can be the challenge if I use an S object as a parameter in a future method? What can be the challenge? Any ideas? No? Fine. Okay. I got a few responses not very close to the actual answer, so I'll try and explain this. Okay, see, for future method, the moment the method is called and when the method is executed, there can be a time difference or there can be time delay between these two things, right? So the method might be called at, try and understand this. Let's say the method was called at 7 a.m. and it got executed at 10 a.m. Okay, so there is this 3 hours window, right? Now, if S object is being defined as a parameter on the future method, what will happen? The method is going to take the value at 7 a.m. For that S object, it's going to take the value at 7 a.m. Okay. Method actually gets executed at 10 a.m. All right. Now, the problem here is that in this, in the meanwhile, when it actually starts executing, there is a possibility that the value of the S object has already changed. Okay, it's possible, right? Someone might go and change the value of the S object record. Now, if the value has got updated, my method is still having the old value because it took that value at 7 a.m. when the method was initially called, and it's gonna override the new value with the old value. Okay, and thus what will happen? Your database will become inconsistent. All right. So with a future method, you cannot use S object. That is where the challenge is. If the method is called at 7 a.m. and executed at 10 a.m., there is a possibility that in this time, the actual S object record got updated, and if there is an update, my method is not aware of that. Okay, it is still gonna use the old value and it's gonna override the new value with the old value. So which is again going to make your database inconsistent. All right. So for that reason, no S objects can be used in future method. Okay. Now, so what if I have to, so this logic is pretty clear. Okay, simple logic. They can be change in the record, so we cannot use S objects as parameters. Fine. So then, what do I do if I have to, work with S objects, or basically if I have to work with the records, not S object. Let's say I have to work with some records and I have to pass a few records or one record as a parameter for a future method, then what do I do? Then I'll to work with S objects in case you need to pass S object as a parameter or records. Okay, we have to use a slightly different trick. So is there a field in a record? Think about it. Is there a field in record which never changes? The value for that field never changes. Which field do you think in the record does not change at all? ID? Yep. ID does not change, right? So what we're going to do, in case I have to work with certain records, ID is a record no matter it is 7 a.m., 7 p.m. tomorrow after 5 years. If the record is there, the ID is going to be the same throughout. It's not going to change, right? Yeah, if the record gets deleted, that's a different story. But if the record is there, the ID is going to be the same. So if I have to work with a record, I can pass the parameter as ID. And then inside the method, we can query we can write a query to fetch the record value from the ID. For example, okay, and here I pass a parameter ID. Okay, so what is going to happen at 7 a.m. let's say when the method was called, it takes the ID for the record. Okay, and inside this method I am going to write account A equals select name type industry from account where ID equals AID. Okay, now 7 a.m. when the method was called, it will take the ID. This ID is going to be constant. It's not going to change. When the method is actually ready to execute, at that time it's going to run this query, because when the method actually starts executing, that time it runs this query. So what does it do? It basically gives you the recent value, the current value of the record using the ID, and then you can use it. All right. So ID data type is also a primitive data type. So you are not able to define any S object as parameters here. All right. So that is a condition with the future method. So whenever we are working with a future method, we have to keep in mind that no S object has parameters. Okay. Fine. All right. Now there is another way of invoking asynchronous apex, which is pretty similar to this future method, which is called a queuable apex. So future method is the first, queuable apex is the second way. Okay. Queuable apex. Okay. This is also used for the same purpose, but the way it is written is slightly different. Okay. The purpose is same. Any long running operation which needs to wait in the queue and then get executed, for that we are going to use queuable apex. All right. But queuable apex, one, it is written in a different way. Okay. As compared to a future method is a method where you just have to use add future annotation. Queuable apex is a complete class. Okay, it's not a method, it's a full class, and in the class you are going to use an interface. Okay, So you will be using a class, and in the class you are going to use an interface. So that's how a queuable apex is defined. A queuable apex, though it is performing the same kind of a job, but it is a lot more enhanced as compared to a future method. Okay, it has got some additional benefits as compared to a future method. So that's something which we are going to understand. First of all, let's understand the queuable apex thing, and then I'm going to talk about how queuable apex is better than future method. Okay, so you can take control of your asynchronous apex processes by using the queuable interface. Okay. So I told you this is going to be a class which uses an interface. Okay, this interface, what does this queuable interface do actually? This queuable interface allows you to add jobs to the queue and monitor them. Okay, so one big advantage of a queuable apex, this is also another way of executing long running operations asynchronously, exactly the way future method does. But one big advantage of a queuable apex is that you are able to monitor the status of your apex code. So think about it, let's say there is a future method. For a future method, you have called the method. Now you do not have a proper system of monitoring the progress of the future method. Like you do not have a place where you can actually go and check what is the current status of the future method. Okay. However, queuable apex allows you to monitor the apex code. Whether it got executed or it is still in the queue, you can always go and check it. Okay. So Salesforce has given you an option to monitor the progress of the queuable apex. Alright, so this is one big advantage as compared to a future method. So for future method, you call the method and then you do not have a proper system to go and check, what is the current status, whether it is still in the queue or it got executed or what is the current status. Alright, with the queuable apex, we have that. Okay. Now, which is an enhanced way of running your asynchronous apex code compared to using future method. So that's what I was talking about. Okay. This interface enables you to add jobs to the queue and monitor them. Okay. It will allow you to add the job to the queue, and it will also allow you to monitor this. Now, this is an enhanced way of running your asynchronous apex code compared to you using future method. So future method is something which was, I think it's been 1 or 2 years almost, I think, when they introduced this queuable apex. Before this, we just had the future method. Okay, I think 2 years, I guess. So before that, we just had the future method. Okay, now this queuable apex was actually introduced keeping in mind that future method had a few challenges. Okay, so for that reason, so keeping that in mind, queuable apex was introduced. Queuable apex is an enhanced way of running asynchronous apex code, and as the name suggests, queuable apex. So this is an apex code which can be put in the job queue. Okay, and you also have an option of monitoring it. For apex processes that run for a long time, such as extensive database operations, you can run them asynchronously by implementing the queuable interface and adding a job to the apex job queue. Okay, so now how do I write queuable apex? I understand that it is pretty similar to a future method, but how do we write a queuable apex? Future method, we know, just we have to use the add feature notation. How are we going to write a queuable apex? Queuable apex is basically not a method, it's a class. Okay, that entire class becomes a queuable apex class, and for that what we have to do, we have to implement the queuable interface on our class. So what we do, how do we define this? Define it like this. Public class, name of the class, implements queuable. Okay. So this is the interface that is being implemented. Okay. For people who are just wondering what is this interface that we are talking See, uh, what happens? Okay, let me give you, a simple example which you can relate to understand. Sometimes you work on a software and to work on some features or functionalities, you just need a plugin. You're aware of plugins, right? So on an application, if you install a plugin, there will be certain things which are done ready-made, which are ready-made, readily available. That's what a plugin does, right? This interface concept is very, very similar to that plugin concept. Okay. So what does this interface do? Is it's basically talking, about another code, or it is calling another code which is written somewhere else. So instead of I writing each bit of code, like if I want my, FX code to get into the job queue, wait there, and it should also be available for monitoring. All these logics I have to write, right? Instead of I writing all these things, Salesforce already has got a small class where all these things are written. What I'm doing, I'm just calling that interface and making all those logics available to this class that I'm creating. That's what we are doing. All right. So I'm giving it a reference point that, okay, fine. How you have to execute this code, that's all written here. Okay. So that you don't have to write anything. You just have to write the current logic. You don't have to write any logic about, you know, uh, how it should wait, where, when it should get executed, how should I be able to monitor it and all that stuff. So that is it. All right. So that's what a queuable interface does. Okay. So you just have to call the queuable interface. That's it. And now because it's a class, I cannot write the code directly in a class. I'll have to write method inside it. Okay, you have to write your method as public void execute. Keep in mind that your method has to be void, it should not return anything, and name of the method has to be execute. Okay, and your code goes here. Whatever you want to execute, that goes here. So all that you have to worry about is the code that you want to execute in future. That's it. Nothing else. Okay. Rest everything is syntax. Okay. Though I have explained you the logic as well, but even if you do not understand, just close your eyes and type implements queuable, copy and paste it. That's it. Okay. So any class which is using an implements queuable, this class becomes a queuable class. Okay. Now this class can be put in the Apex job queue and this can be monitored, right? That's what this queuable interface does. Go back to this. Okay, so as I was discussing here, you can take control of your synchronous Apex processes by using this queuable interface. So this allows you to, this interface enables you to add jobs to the queue and monitor them, which is an enhanced way, okay, of executing as compared to the future method. So that's fine. All right. So this is the complete syntax for writing a queuable Apex. Okay. Things that you need to keep in mind. Class name can be whatever you want. Implements queuable interface that you have to define. Uh, this method that you define inside it has to be a void method. It cannot return anything for an obvious reason because it's a future method. So, I might not have another arrangement to take back the, return value. I do not know when it gets executed, right? Name of the method has to be execute. Okay, that's something which we have to follow. It cannot be something else. It has to be execute, and then just write the code here. Simple. Okay, so let's just go ahead and write it in Salesforce. Give me a moment. Let me log in. I'll write a code and then I'll put it in the job queue and I'll show it to you. Okay, fine. So when I'm trying to write Cueball Apex, where do you think I should go? Where should I write this? Go to setup and then where should I go? Cueball Apex needs to be written. Have a look at this. If I have to write this code, where should I write it? Where do I go to write this? Develop Apex classes, right? No? Just go ahead and create a class. Okay, as simple as that. It's just a class, right? And that's what I told you. It's just a class. So you just need to go ahead and create a class. So just go to setup, develop Apex classes. Don't worry about anything else. It's just a simple class, the way you created earlier. Just that the classes that we created earlier were for Visual Force pages. Now the class that I'm writing right now is going to be used as a Cueball Apex. That's it. Okay, it's just a class, right? So write public class name, whatever name you want, implements Cueball. Okay, so this implements Cueball. I have made my code Cueball. All that I need to do is I just need to define one method inside it with the name of the method should be execute. So it should be public. It should be a void method always, and it has to be execute. Okay, now this method needs to understand that it has to, work with the Cueball context. All right. So for that, by default, there is a parameter that needs to be defined, Cueball context. Okay. Okay. So this is what you have to define. Again, a part of the syntax, because this execute method is gonna work with the code with this Cueball interface. All right. So for that, now you write whatever code you have to write. Okay. So these two lines, just in case you have to create a Cueball class or Cueball Apex, just type these two lines, copy paste these two lines, even if you do not understand the logic. Okay, it has to be void, it has to be execute, and then whatever code you want to execute in future, you just write that code. Just worry about that code which you want to execute. So we are going to execute. Let's say I'll just write a simple code here. Right. Fine. Save it. User Q class must implement the global interface method. Execute. Okay, sorry. Execute. Spelling is wrong. See, I told you the method name has to be execute only. If it is something else, it's not going to take it. Spelling was wrong. Okay, fine. That's it. Okay. Now, I've written a very simple, code here. I just want you to focus on the Cueball logic. I don't want you to focus more on this. But this can be anything. Okay, so you can write any code here. Now, this code is ready to be put in the job queue, and this can be monitored. Now, the question is, how do I put it in the job queue? The class is ready, but how do I put it in the job queue? To put it in the job queue, you can use a predefined method which is called system.enqueueJob. Okay, and here you can put new queue class. Okay. So there is a method called system.enqueueJob which can be used for putting this class into the job queue. Any queuable class, queuable apex class into job queue. Okay. And the system.enqueueJob basically returns an ID. Okay. So you can write it like this: ID, job ID equals. Okay. So if I execute this line of code, I should be able to put this queue class into the job queue. Okay. Now I just have this one line of code. I can execute it from a method also. But is there a way where I can just go ahead and execute this one line of code without saving this code? Is there a way from where I can execute this one line of code? I just want to execute it one time. Is there a way I can do it? Anonymous code block. Yeah, correct. So we are just going to execute it using anonymous code block. Now I don't want to go ahead and create a class and then define a method and then call this. So I don't want to do that much. I'm just going to call this one line code from anonymous code block. So go to developer console, debug, put the code here and execute it. So that executing that one line of code is basically gonna put that system.enqueueJob, as I told you, is gonna put the queuable class into job queue. Okay. Now we talked about another thing. Apart from putting it in the job queue, it also allows us to monitor it. How do we monitor it and where do we monitor it? To monitor your Apex code, you just need to go to setup, scroll down towards the end of it. The second last option is jobs. Just go to this one under monitor. The second last option is jobs. Go to this and click on Apex jobs. Okay. Now you will find all your queuable Apex here. You will be able to monitor your queuable Apex from here. Okay. Job type queuable, status completed. Okay. Because this org is not doing anything else, and the queuable code that I had was very small, so it has already got completed. So you will always be able to see the status here. So is it still in the queue, or is it pending, or is it completed? That we will be able to see. Okay. And this is the unique job ID for your queuable Apex. This is the unique job ID for it. Okay, which you can choose to track it later on also. Let's say there are 5 or 6 other queuable Apex and you want to understand which one was the one that I called. You can definitely track it using the job ID also. Okay. So every time you put it in the job queue, there is a unique Apex job ID which is generated. Alright. So that is it. That's how a queuable Apex works. Okay. So we can use queuable Apex to again perform long running operations, and defining queuable Apex, as you just saw, is simply we just have to use the queuable interface and we just have to ensure that the name of the method is execute. Nothing else needs to be taken care of. Now, I told you queuable Apex is an enhanced way of executing asynchronous Apex as compared to the future method. Okay, so how queuable Apex is better than this future method? Okay, so how a queuable Apex is better than it? So first point is that you can monitor queuable Apex. Okay, you do not have this kind of a mechanism to monitor future method. Okay, which definitely gives it an advantage over the future method. Second thing is that in queuable class you can use S objects as parameters. Okay, since this entire class is going to the job queue, so you can define some parameters here, like something like this, and you can call these and these parameters can be called here. Okay, so there can be parameters which are defined, and those parameters can be called, right? Now because this entire class is waiting in the queue, so this parameter values will be taken only when the method is ready to execute. All right, so that is the thing. And the third good thing about queuable Apex is that chaining of jobs. Okay. What is chaining of jobs? Chaining of jobs basically means if you have multiple jobs to be done, okay, you can put them in a particular sequence using this queuable Apex. Okay, now think about it. If there are two queuable Apex that we have created, there is queuable Apex 1, there is another code queuable Apex 2. Okay. Now, if I want to make sure that this method should get executed before this one gets executed, then what I can do, this one I can call using the system.enqueueJob, and this method I can put inside this. Okay, system.enqueueJob for this can be put inside this towards the end of this code, somewhere here. Got it? Which will mean what? That once this code gets executed completely, then the other code will be called, the other Apex code will be called. Right? Now if I have a third queuable Apex also, I can define the system.enqueueJob method for that here in this. Okay, so when first one gets executed, then the second one is called. When the second one gets executed, third one is called. If I have a fourth one like this, okay, so this is what we can do. We can basically do the chaining of jobs as per our requirement. So while you are actually defining this, you have the option of doing the chaining of jobs. So one job can be made dependent on the other, so that when the first one gets executed, then the second one gets initiated. Correct. So that's something which can be done. So these are three major advantages that queuable Apex has got as compared to a future method. All right. Okay. So now we have talked about future method and we have talked about queuable Apex. All right. Now I'm going to talk about another type of asynchronous Apex. Queuable Apex is for a long running operation which needs to be done, which needs to be performed, and I just go ahead and put it in the job queue. All right. So now you write the code and you just go and call this system.enqueueJob method when you want to execute this queuable Apex code, right? Okay. Now let's say I have a requirement, I have a long running operation, okay, which I want to run it asynchronously, but this time I am trying to run it on a frequent basis. Okay. This time I'm actually not trying to run it as a one-time thing. I'm trying to run it on a frequent basis, multiple times. Okay. Now then what do I do? Like let's say there's a code that needs to be executed every Friday. Okay, it needs to be executed every Friday. There is some data cleansing code that I've written, and I want that to work every Friday. Now, what do you think? For every Friday, if I ask someone to go and put it in the job queue, not a very good option, right? If I ask someone that okay, go ahead and put it in the job queue every Friday manually, not a very good option. What are we going to do there? We are going to use another asynchronous Apex, which is called schedulable Apex. Okay, so schedulable apex is asynchronous apex code which can be scheduled. Simple stuff. Okay, asynchronous apex code which can be scheduled. All right. Okay. Now, how do we define a schedulable apex? Pretty similar to the way you defined a queuable apex. Okay, everything is same. Just that instead of using a queuable interface, this time we are going to implement a different interface, which is a schedulable interface. Rest everything remains same. Okay. So let me just go back to this Salesforce, create an apex class here. I told you, you just have to, define it the same way you defined a queuable interface. So we are going to create a new class. Public class S class or whatever name you want to give, implements schedulable. Okay, this time it's going to use a schedulable interface. The rest everything almost remains same. You have to use the void method. Name of the method has to be execute. Here you have to write schedulable context. Okay, now you write your code, whatever your code is. Okay, some code, that's it. Save it. Okay, so this basically creates the schedulable class or schedulable apex class for me. So only difference from the queuable apex is the name of the interface. Instead of the queuable interface, this time we are using a schedulable interface. Now a schedulable interface basically allows you to schedule the code so that it can be run on a defined frequency. Okay, that's the thing. That's what it does. All right. Now, how do I put it in the job queue? This is because this is something which is going to be done every, on a frequent basis. This time we are not going to use the system.in_queueJob method kind of a thing. This time what we are going to do, we are going to put it in the, we are going to define the schedule for it. Okay. So, to put it in the job queue, all that you have to do, you just have to define a schedule for it, and on your defined schedule it's automatically going to go to the job queue and it's going to wait there. Got it? And again, one thing that we have to keep in mind is that this is asynchronous apex. So if you say that Friday 7 p.m., if you define the schedule as Friday 7 p.m., does not mean that it will get executed on Friday 7 p.m. All right. If there are some other important things going on, it will try to execute at Friday 7 p.m. But if the resources are not available, it's going to wait, and it might get executed at 8 p.m. also. So that's the thing. Okay, so let me just save this, and now let us define the schedule for it. Defining schedule is very simple. Go to Apex classes. To define the schedule, you just have to go to Apex classes, and you have to click on schedule Apex. Give the job name. you want select the Apex class. Okay. Now here you will only be able to select the Apex classes which have got schedulable interface. Other classes will not be available. Obviously, you cannot schedule the other classes. Now define your frequency, weekly or monthly. I said weekly, Friday. Okay. Start date and end date, till when you want this process to continue. I want this process to continue till 31st December, and the start time should be 7 p.m. See, exact start time will depend on the job queue activity. That's what I was telling you. Save this. Now this Apex code has got scheduled. It's automatically gonna go and get executed on the defined time, depending on the job queue activity, obviously. So might get a little delayed from the exact time defined there, but it will get executed every Friday. Now you can monitor this again in the under setup monitor jobs. Okay, so you can just go to the Apex jobs, and you will see that this is in the scheduled Apex queued. Okay, this is scheduled for execution on this Friday. All right, you can also track the scheduled Apex under jobs, scheduled jobs. Okay, see, this job is scheduled. Next scheduled run is on 11th of November, 7 p.m. Right. So that's how simple it is to write code and schedule it. All right. Okay. Fine. So that's what we're going to discuss today. Now let me know if anyone has got any questions or queries from the session today.